spent a lot of time talking about ecosystems in some of our past videos. If you remember, ecosystems include all biotic and abiotic factors. Abiotic factors are those non-living factors that affect an environment. They are things like rocks, soil, water, even temperature, sunlight, and humidity. Biotic factors are living factors. We often think of animals, plants, and fungus. And that's exactly what I want to focus on today, plants. But not just any plants. I want to talk about trees. So right now, I want you to do me a favor, and I want you to close your eyes, and I want you to picture a tree. What kind of features does it have? Go ahead and open your eyes. My guess is that the type of tree you pictured depends on what time of year you're viewing this video or where you're located. If I lived in Hawaii, I might have pictured a palm tree. If it were spring here in Southeast Michigan, I might have pictured a beautiful redwood tree. But it is the beginning of December here in Monroe, so I pictured a spruce tree. Now, all of those trees have some things in common, but they also have some differences. And that's what brings us to our topic for today. Deciduous versus coniferous trees. I want to start by talking about what do they all have in common. All trees belong to a group called producers or photosynthesizers, which is just a fancy way to say that they use energy from the sun to produce their own food. If you remember from a past video, you know that photosynthesis is just the process where a plant uses water from the roots along with carbon dioxide from the air and sunlight to produce a special kind of sugar for itself called glucose, along with oxygen for us to breathe. In trees, those roots are connected to a trunk, which has many different layers, all helping the tree to survive. The outer bark helps protect the delicate insides of the tree. The inner bark is actually made up of the phloem, which is kind of like a roadway, allowing nutrients and food to travel down the trunk. The cambium is a group of cells that grows every year, producing a new ring. The youngest cells are part of the sapwood, which contains the xylem, which is also a roadway but opposite that of the phloem. Instead, it brings water and nutrients up the tree to the taller branches. The heartwood is then darker in color and is where most of the extra sugars and oils get stored. So the trunk, with all of its layers, are connected to multiple branches which have leaves on them. And those leaves may look very different depending on what type of tree it is. But we know that all of those leaves help capture sunlight for photosynthesis. They also have small pores in them, which is where the carbon dioxide enters the tree in order to go through photosynthesis and where that oxygen that it produces is released. All of these parts of the tree help it to survive whatever conditions its ecosystem faces. So let's talk now about what makes deciduous trees and coniferous trees different from one another. The word deciduous means to fall off. Well, what falls off? But the leaves. Every autumn, a deciduous tree will drop its leaves. In the north, this typically coincides with a cooler temperature, and in more tropical regions, it coincides with a dry season. This is kind of like a rest period for the tree, but it's followed by a blossoming of flowers, which after being pollinated, produces a seed protected by an outer covering, like a fruit. Now, this fruit may be similar to fruit that you're used to eating, like apples, pears, and cherries, but it can be more of a capsule-like coating, like the acorns of an oak tree or the helicopters of a maple tree. After the production of a seed, the leaves begin to grow again. Most of these leaves for deciduous trees are large and flat, perfect for capturing energy from the sun for photosynthesis. Those leaves produce a lot of food and sugar for that tree to be able to grow. It continues until autumn hits again and those leaves once again drop to the ground. So how is this different from a coniferous tree? Let's find out. Coniferous trees like pine, spruce, and fir are named so because their seeds do not have a protective outer covering, but are sometimes housed in a cone. Instead of having large flat leaves like a deciduous tree, a coniferous tree has long, slender, needle-like leaves. Now these leaves have a thicker outer covering, taking more energy to grow. So instead of dropping them every year, they hold on to them for multiple years as a way to conserve energy. This thicker outer covering also makes it harder for water to evaporate. So if temperatures stay warmer for longer and the sunlight plentiful enough, they may be able to go through photosynthesis for a bit longer. Another important difference is the triangular shape of a coniferous tree. Now, this may not seem very important, but it helps to make sure that all of the needles have equal access to the sunlight and also helps support the weight of snowfall in temperate and polar regions. A deciduous tree may see multiple branches break under the weight of snow and ice, but the triangular shape of a coniferous tree helps to evenly distribute that weight as well as melt off a little bit easier when the sunlight begins to warm the snow. Since a coniferous tree holds on to their leaves all year, they keep a green color, giving them the nickname evergreens. I think I'm starting to understand why we see these trees so much in the winter. I don't think a bare cherry tree would look nearly as festive decorated for the holidays. So let's see if we can put it all together. All trees use a process of photosynthesis to make their own food. Water must travel from the roots to the trunk and up to the branches and the leaves. Those leaves, whether broad as in a deciduous tree or thick and needle-like in a coniferous tree, must bring in carbon dioxide and sunlight, releasing out excess oxygen. Those deciduous trees drop their leaves in autumn, either due to cooler temperatures or a dry season, and in the spring regrow their leaves along with produce a seed covered by a fruit or a capsule. Coniferous trees take more energy to grow those needles, so they will keep them for multiple years, retaining a green appearance throughout the entire year. They also do not have seeds encased by a fruit or a capsule, but they may be protected by a cone. Coniferous trees take advantage of a triangular shape, giving their needles greater access towards the sun and a lesser chance of breaking under the weight of heavy snowfall. Wow! Would you have ever guessed that trees could be so complicated? Me either, but they sure are cool. Thank you so much for joining us today. We hope you check out all of our YouTube videos, and until we meet again, goodbye.